Well, welcome everyone to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist, and on today's show, the big picture on real estate, part one of our series on real estate investing with best-selling author, real estate economist, and host of the Real Wealth Show, Kathy Fettke. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you so much.
Kathy, we're into talking about real estate. I mean, I remember the Depression, they said that all goods and services and investments depreciated because of the terrible depression that we went through. But the one of them, even though real estate did, it still was a less of a depreciation. It was a hedge even during bad times.
Sure. Well, it depends on what you owned. There's a lot of people who lost everything. If you're talking about the most recent recession,
no, that's
are you talking about you're talking about the depression. Okay.
Right.
Well, it depends on what you own, and if you have cash flowing assets, then it doesn't matter what the value is. It can go up and down, but if you are renting it and creating income, then you can ride through the difficult times.
Now, we've been in the lowest interest rate environment. I've been in this business for 34 years, and I've never seen it this low, this long. Yeah. So people that want to get into real estate, have money, cash flow, and good credit, I mean, this is not a hard thing to get into.
Oh, no. I mean, there's never been a better time. Well, 2009 was pretty great, too, to get some deals. But I am actually right now at a conference with some of the top hedge funds, the top hedge funds that are investing in real estate. And you know what they're choosing? They're still choosing single-family home rentals.
Not commercial.
Over commercial. I mean, that's still out there. But real estate, residential, there's so much demand that household formation over the next 10 years will be twice what it was over the past 10 years.
Now, when you say household formation, what do you mean by that?
What I mean is people who are moving out of mom and dad's or moving into their own place.
Hopefully, right?
Hopefully. And you have the millennial population, which we know is a huge generation, and they are trying to go live on their own. And, you know, the question is, will they buy? Will they rent? And the answer is they're going to rent for a while, and probably the next 10 years, which means that people like you and me can do them a great service and provide them housing and collect rent.
Now, do you talk about this on your show, your real estate show?
Absolutely.
About things like this?
Oh, yeah. That's what got me started. My own show was investing in real estate.
What about I'm looking at your book, Retire Rich Rental. That's on Amazon.com.
Yep.
If information that we're going to be talking about is going to be in that book.
Yes. Well, I've simplified the process because so many people are, obviously the stock market has taken off since Trump became president-elect, but the fundamentals haven't changed. So a lot of people see that as temporary, and they want to be in something safe, a hard asset, at least part of their assets in their retirement, in something that couldn't disappear overnight, which is housing. And so we have a lot of people that I call stock market refugees who want to be in hard assets but don't know how. So Retire Rich with Rentals is just summarizing it so that anybody can understand it.
Now, you've been on CBS, Fox, MSNBC, a lot of these the different channels talking about not just owning real estate, but you like income producing real estate, right? I mean, isn't that that's really the mantra?
Absolutely. I mean, too many people buy investments with just the hope of appreciation or someday maybe it'll be worth more. How about buy something that's worth something today, which is passive income? And that's really the name of the game. That's why these Wall Street hedge funds are diving into cash flowing real estate, because there's not a lot of places where you can get yield today like that.
Well, I'm surprised in one of your interviews you talked about home ownership is at a 50-year low. I was in shock.
Yeah, and that's what's so interesting is that there are, like you said, we've had low interest rates. It should be easier to qualify, and it's cheaper in many places to own than to rent. Rents have gone through the roof, but people can't qualify because of their debt. And so home ownership rates have declined, and at the same time, like I said, there's more people forming households, so they're going to be forced to rent for probably the next 10 years. And for people like you and me looking to retire, well, we love our jobs, but people who want to retire, you want to be able to have money that's coming in every month passively, and one of the ways you can do that is renting to these people who need a place to live.
Now, you talk about a little bit in your book, you talk about builders stopped building for 5 years. So our inventory, how low is it? It must be very low.
It is, well, again, with our growing population here in the U.S. and the fact that builders just stopped building because they got hit really hard during the recession. Everything is everything moves in market cycles. So it was just 5-6 years ago that we had way too much housing inventory. It was everywhere and it was cheap. We're here in Phoenix, and boy, you could get great deals. But so nobody realized that just fast forward 5-6 years, all that inventory has been bought by international investors, by U.S. investors, and yet builders they got wiped out. So they haven't been able to get up and running. Plus, builder costs have gone up 30%. It costs about 25% just in regulations, just to get permits, to build housing. So they cannot provide affordable housing today. So there's a real lack of it. And yet you've got this growing population. The millennials are larger than the baby boomers today. They're moving out, forming homes, and the real estate's not out there.
Now I've noticed for the millennials, and when I get email from people under 40, I'm astonished. I have all this debt, so I'm having a hard time getting a mortgage.
Yeah.
You say in one of your books, one of your chapters of your book, you talk about, do you realize that investors have an easier time getting a mortgage than a person who's a homeowner, and especially a millennial who's already saddled with debt, and they're trying to come up with just a down payment and have a decent credit score?
Yeah, well, first of all, they need 2 years job history. They need to have debt to income ratios in line, and they've got this crazy student loan debt. I mean, that's all over the news. And so they're just not able to qualify. I mean, an example is we help investors buy properties, say, in Florida, and these markets that haven't boomed, they haven't bubbled up yet. A lot of markets in the U.S. have bubbled up, and you want to stay out of those. But 60% of the U.S. hasn't. And so if you were to buy a $100,000 investment property, your loan payment on that might be $400 a month, but the rent would be $900. So it would be so much smarter if someone could buy, but they can't. And so they have to rent, and they have to pay double, sometimes triple. And that's just how it is. But it's a great opportunity for the landlord, for the investor today.
Okay, now let's just make sure we got a couple definitions here. When you say passive income, that adjective, what does passive mean for a regular person who says, I'm interested in investing in real estate? I like your talk.
I'm so glad you asked, because there's people are throwing it around, and so there's a difference of passive, which would be the stock market. You meet with your financial planner and you don't do anything. You don't have any control, totally passive. In real estate, there are all kinds of ways to get passive income, but some are more passive than others. So one way to get pretty much totally passive income is to be a lender, actually. And I teach people how to do that, because if they're having a hard time getting a loan conventionally, but they would like to buy a home, you can seller finance to them and get 6, 7, 8%. So that's pretty passive, especially if you have a lot of equity in the home. A second way, again, as I said, is to buy rental property, where in the way that we show investors do it, it's more passive than if you didn't know what you're doing, because it's all about screening the tenant. It's all about buying the property in a place where people want to live.
Well, I'm back to your point too for a second here. What kind of due diligence do I have to run this potential homeowner that I'm lending him money to, right, to get this done? What kind of due diligence, what kind of safety valve for me is there?
The exact same as a bank, but better. It's your money, and you're not going to get bailed out like the banks get to do. So that would be making sure that there's a solid job history, that this isn't a brand new job and a temporary one. So banks look at a 2-year job history. You could work with a loan broker actually to do it all for you. You don't have to do it yourself, and then they could pull credit. And again, there's a whole checklist. You
just pay them a fee.
You don't just pick someone randomly and give them a loan. And ideally, they would put 20% in, or the best scenario for totally passive income when it comes to lending is to actually seller finance, so that at some point they would have the opportunity to own that home. So it could be an option to buy or seller financing, and most people aren't going to walk away from that. The only reason people really walked away from their loans during the crisis was that they couldn't afford the payment. So again, as long as they make enough, as your borrower makes enough money to make it should be about 25%, 30% of what they earn. Yeah.
Well, when we're thinking about passive real estate investing options, this is an alternative. For many Americans, this is an alternative issue.
Sure.
We're going to talk about this all this week, all 5 parts of this, to really kind of get down and dirty and see what this can really do for investors and really open your portfolio. Listen, don't forget to watch part 2 of our series on real estate investing, the best location to buy income property. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or your financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.